Hi everybody. The year 2024 became a year full of surprises for Mexico. A wave of spiritual awakening, unexpected yet profound, swept through a country known for its deep Catholic traditions. Thousands of Mexicans from diverse backgrounds began to embrace Islam, marking the beginning of a new chapter in their religious and spiritual journeys. It all began with a simple question that many had in mind: what truly brings peace? In a world filled with social unrest and uncertainty, this question began to stir the consciousness of many. Social media, which had become a crucial tool for spreading information, played a powerful role in disseminating messages of Islam, offering a sense of peace and tranquility. Preachers and scholars from around the world, both from the Middle East and Western countries, began to spread the message of Islam with passion. They shared Islam in the Spanish language, breaking down barriers that had previously hindered Mexicans from understanding the religion more deeply. Using digital platforms, podcasts, and social media, they reached thousands of people, opening the eyes of many individuals who had previously known little about Islam. But this was not just about media or digital preaching. Mexican society, known for its strong sense of family and solidarity, began to see the alignment between the values of Islam and their own cultural traditions. The courage to seek truth drove many to explore Islam further, a religion that offered a life full of meaning, peace, and purpose. Islam, known for its emphasis on social justice, simplicity, and peace, connected deeply with many, even though they came from very different backgrounds. One story that made headlines was the conversion of Javier, a young engineer who had achieved material success. After years of living a life full of accomplishments, Javier felt something was missing. He started seeking peace in religion, and after listening to a lecture by a scholar from Egypt via a podcast, his heart was moved. "This is what I've been looking for all along," he thought. In a short time, he decided to embrace Islam, a step that would change the course of his life. Javier was not alone. Across Mexico, similar stories were unfolding. From large cities like Mexico City to rural areas, many people felt a strong connection to the teachings of Islam, which offered answers to their spiritual restlessness. Islam was not only seen as a religion but as a path to a better life. Furthermore, one of the factors accelerating conversions was the increasing connection between Mexico and the international Muslim community. Immigrants from the Middle East, Africa, and South Asia brought with them their culture and understanding of Islam, making it more accessible to Mexicans who wished to learn. Even the indigenous communities in Mexico began to feel that Islam's teachings aligned with their ancestral values of humility, mutual respect, and care for others. In just a few months, something extraordinary happened. Islam began to take root in the heart of Mexican society, and this wave of conversions could no longer be ignored. A country that was previously predominantly Catholic began to feel the winds of change. Thousands of people began taking a bold step in their spiritual journey, choosing Islam as their faith, a choice they believed brought peace, freedom from anxiety, and a clearer purpose in life. This conversion story was only the beginning of something much larger. Mexico had entered a new era, one where spiritual awakening and the search for a meaningful life converged in the form of Islam, which was now touching the hearts of thousands. What began as a personal search for truth was now becoming a social movement that was slowly but surely changing the face of the nation. And this was just the beginning. The remarkable rise of Islam in Mexico not only transformed the spiritual lives of its people but also reshaped the social and religious infrastructure across the country. As thousands of people began embracing Islam, the need for adequate places of worship and Islamic education became urgent. New mosques began to spring up across various corners of the country, and rapidly, Mexico began to witness an extraordinary transformation in its Islamic landscape. For many Mexicans who converted to Islam, mosques became places of refuge and peace. However, prior to 2024, mosques were few and far between, mostly located in large cities like Mexico City and Monterrey. But with the rapid growth in the number of converts, the need for proper places of worship became critical. Hundreds of new mosques were built in a relatively short period of time, and each mosque not only served as a place for prayer but also as a community center. From grand mosques built in the heart of the city to smaller, yet equally vibrant mosques in rural areas, these mosques became symbols of spiritual victory and social change. In Mexico City, one of the largest mosques to be newly opened drew attention from many. Not only Muslims but also members of the general public became curious about Islam. These mosques also became centers for social and educational activities. Many mosques began offering classes about Islam, Arabic language courses, and programs for children to learn the Quran. For many of Mexico's new Muslim converts, mosques were not only places of worship but also a second home, providing a sense of community and support from a larger group. In addition to mosques, Islamic education began to develop rapidly in Mexico. Islamic schools offering curriculums based on the Quran and Hadith were established to meet the growing educational needs of the young Muslim generation. Many young Muslim families were concerned that their children would not receive an appropriate Islamic education in regular schools. As a result, they started opening Islamic schools in major cities like Guadalajara, Tijuana, and Monterrey. These schools did not only teach religious subjects but also offered general education that met the standards of Mexican schools. Competent and experienced teachers from various countries contributed to shaping a new generation of young Mexicans who understood the principles of Islam. Additionally, these schools instilled discipline, hard work, and honesty, which are core values of Islam. In many of these Islamic schools, children not only learned to read the Quran but were also taught how to live better lives through the teachings of Islam, which emphasizes cleanliness, justice, and compassion. Parents felt reassured knowing their children were receiving an education that would help shape strong character, good morals, and responsibility. It wasn't just physical infrastructure that was developing, but the economic sector was also affected. Sharia-compliant banks and halal markets began to emerge to cater to the financial needs of the growing Muslim population. As more people embraced Islam, many became interested in conducting their financial transactions according to Islamic principles, avoiding interest, riba, and supporting fair and transparent transactions. Several Islamic banks began opening branches in major cities such as Mexico City and Monterrey. They offered a range of services, from Sharia-compliant savings accounts and interest-free loans to halal investment opportunities. This provided Mexican Muslims with easier access to manage their finances in accordance with Islamic teachings. Additionally, the halal market began to flourish, with stores selling halal food, clothing, cosmetics, and other goods. This market attracted not only Muslims but also non-Muslims who were curious about trying halal products, which were known for being healthier and of higher quality. Mexico was now a country with a dynamic social landscape, one that was drastically different from before. Amidst this vast transformation, Muslims in Mexico were becoming more visible and recognized as an integral part of society. The mosques, which had once been scarce, were now part of daily life in many cities. They were no longer a marginalized group but were becoming a prominent feature of the social fabric. The development of Islamic infrastructure in Mexico also had a significant impact on interfaith dialogue. With more mosques and a growing, strong community, Mexican Muslims began to actively engage in interfaith activities, working with churches, synagogues, and other religious organizations to promote peace and mutual understanding. Muslims in Mexico were also active in social causes, helping to resolve community issues, and promoting messages of peace and tolerance. Islam was not just a religion for a few, it was becoming a vital part of the social pillar that connected various groups in Mexican society. This wave of change was still ongoing, and Mexico had now entered a new era, where Islam was more than just a religion, it was becoming a force that was reshaping the country toward a more inclusive, peaceful, and hopeful future. The rapid growth of Islam in Mexico in 2024 not only affected the religious and spiritual landscape but also brought about profound social and cultural changes. As more Mexicans embraced Islam, daily life in cities and rural areas alike began to shift. Amidst the country's long-standing cultural and religious diversity, Islam introduced a new dynamic that enriched the social fabric of Mexico. One of the greatest impacts of Islam's rise in Mexico was the increased awareness of the religion. Media, which had often portrayed Islam from a narrow or negative perspective, began to cover the rapid rise of Islam with more balanced and positive portrayals. Major news outlets and television channels started to report on the stories of Mexican converts and their contributions to society. Documentaries, talk shows, and news segments about the lives of Muslims in Mexico became more frequent, sparking curiosity among the general public. This shift in the media led to a significant change in how Mexicans viewed Islam. Many people who had previously only encountered Islam through the lens of mainstream media, which often focused on extremism or violence, began to see it as a religion of peace and compassion. Mexicans began to realize that Islam is a faith that promotes social justice, kindness, gender equality, and respect for the environment, values they could resonate with. The growing Muslim population was no longer perceived as a foreign or isolated group but as part of the nation's evolving cultural identity. Significant lifestyle changes were also observed within the growing Muslim community. Women wearing hijab became a more common sight, whether in public streets, shopping malls, or workplaces. For many Mexican women who converted to Islam, wearing the hijab was not merely a religious symbol but also an expression of personal freedom and a choice to live a life of simplicity and closer connection to Allah. Hijab, once misunderstood by some, came to represent a strong identity and pride in embracing Islamic values. Muslim men in Mexico also began to make visible changes in their daily lives. Performing the 5 daily prayers became a central part of their routine, even in busy professions. Many started organizing their lives with greater discipline, avoiding harmful habits, and striving to become better individuals. The emphasis on cleanliness and honesty, core principles of Islam, began to manifest in the way people lived their everyday lives. These changes were not limited to Muslims alone. Even non-Muslims in Mexico began to appreciate some of the positive habits introduced by Islam, such as maintaining cleanliness, respecting time, and helping those in need. Islamic values started to inspire a sense of responsibility and ethics that transcended religious boundaries and contributed to a broader societal shift. Another noticeable impact was the rise of interfaith tolerance in Mexico. As the Muslim population grew, new spaces for dialogue and cooperation among different faith groups emerged. Muslim communities in Mexico became actively involved in interfaith initiatives, working with Christian, Jewish, and other religious communities to promote peace and mutual understanding. One of the most significant examples of interfaith dialogue was a meeting between Muslim and Catholic religious leaders held in Mexico City. The event provided an opportunity for both communities to engage in meaningful conversation, explore shared values, and promote tolerance. Many Mexicans, both Muslim and non-Muslim, saw this as an important step toward creating a more inclusive and peaceful society. Mexican Muslims also became involved in social causes, helping to address issues such as poverty, homelessness, and disaster relief. They worked with non-Muslim organizations to provide aid to the less fortunate, without discrimination based on faith. These actions highlighted that Islam is not just about individual devotion but also a commitment to improving society as a whole. As the Muslim community in Mexico grew, Islam increasingly became seen as part of the nation's identity. Mexico, historically a predominantly Catholic country, began to view Islam not just as a foreign religion but as a living, integral part of its evolving spiritual landscape. Islam's message of peace, social justice, and compassion aligned with the values many Mexicans already held dear. For Mexican Muslims, Islam was not just a faith but a way of life that gave them direction and purpose. Amidst the fast-paced, often chaotic modern world, Islam offered them serenity and strength. A community that was once seen as small and marginal had now become a visible and respected part of Mexican society. The religious transformation of the country was no longer just an individual journey, it had become a collective social movement that was slowly but surely reshaping the nation. The cultural shift that accompanied the rise of Islam in Mexico was not just about religious conversion, it was about finding a new way to live that was in harmony with both personal and societal values. Muslims in Mexico were no longer an invisible minority but a growing community contributing to the diversity and richness of the country. The rise of Islam in Mexico in 2024 was more than a religious movement, it was a social and cultural phenomenon that brought lasting changes to the country. With increased awareness about Islam, visible lifestyle changes, and greater interfaith tolerance, Mexico was becoming a more inclusive and peaceful society. The integration of Islam into the fabric of Mexican life was not just about adopting a new religion but about embracing a set of values that resonated with the country's evolving social conscience. In the face of uncertainty and global challenges, Islam provided Mexicans with a new sense of direction, peace, and community. This transformation continues to unfold, and Mexico now stands as an example of how faith can bring people together, enrich cultures, and create a better society for all. Islam had become more than just a religion in Mexico, it had become a powerful force for positive change.